So if there was ever an unknown answer to a question, this would totally be it. Hello everyone, I am Janelle in SLP Peep, and today we are talking about what to teach first. What is the first activity? What is the first everything when you have a client for the first time? Why are we doing this? Because the month of June is all about strategies and what to do when somebody comes in your office needing therapy. Now here on the SLP Peep channel, we talk about all things speech language pathology related, whether that is how to get into a school, what to teach, what do these certain things mean, but we talk about it here. If you are interested in this content, please consider subscribing. And now let's move on. So what do you do? Kiddo walks in your office for the very first time. What do you start with? What's your first activity? You know nothing other than pretty much the list of goals that the insurance company gives you. And by the way, sometimes those goals and that report that the insurance company gives you is a few months old, and the child has definitely changed. Unfortunately and fortunately, the answer to this always changes. Why? Because every child is different, and thus how you start things off will always be different as well. Can you have themes and similarities? Yes. But things need to be individualized. I feel like I've said things need to be individualized so many times this month because it's true. So going on with this video, I'm going to talk about how I start some therapy sessions off. These might be some things that you've heard before, you've done before, and you're like, yes, that's a tried and true method. Some of these things may be brand new and you've never thought about doing this, and that's okay too. Every clinician is different, just as every client is different. For example, when I have an older articulation kiddo coming in, articulation meaning the sounds of speech, I sometimes skip the speech sound, are you able to produce it? And I go straight into, did you know this is what the inside of your mouth looks like? Let me show you. I go into a whole anatomy lesson first. I show them if we cut your face in half like this is where your teeth is, this is what your tongue actually looks like. Hey, by the way, can you lift your tongue so you can feel this part in your mouth? That's called this. And did you know that when you put your tongue here, you make this sound? When you put your tongue there, you make that sound? We go into anatomy and learn about it. Depending on the age and the attention and the focus of the child depends on how much I go into. There are some kiddos where after they see this being done, the drawing of the anatomy, there are some kiddos that want to practice it by themselves afterwards, meaning they'll draw the anatomy and they'll say, hey, I'm making this sound right now, and they attempt it. Now, as I mentioned before, that's a lot of my older kiddos, meaning 6 on up. Sometimes I can have younger kiddos that pay attention to it. Another thing that I do sometimes first right off the bat is I act confused at what they're saying. Sometimes I pretend I know what they're saying because I want them to keep talking, but sometimes I act confused at certain parts or certain words. For example, if someone is telling me about how honey something is, and it is honey when somebody falls down and honey this and honey that, I sometimes stop them saying, what do you mean honey? If they continue on as if I should know what the word honey means, that generally tells me they don't hear the difference between honey and funny. Or sometimes they actually stop me and say, no, not honey, it's honey. Then that tells me they hear the difference between honey and funny, but they're not able to get the in funny yet. This also lets the child know that, yes, your family may understand you. Not everyone else does, though. Now, that's all for articulation and speech sounds. But what about language? There is so much more that goes on to language therapy that it makes articulation therapy seem like nothing. What do I mean by language errors? Think of this in terms of grammar errors, plural errors, gender pronoun errors, verb tensing errors. If somebody keeps saying things in the present tense or the future tense, but they actually mean it in the past tense, and they keep going, but they don't give a date like yesterday or last week. So what exactly to do for this? Well, as mentioned before, I can show confusion, and I might bring up the point of, oh, somebody will jump later today. This acting confused really works very well when children want to be understood and they actually care what other people think. Now, if a child does not actually care what you think, or they don't care to be understood, they just want to do their own thing, things get a little bit complicated. Another strategy I sometimes go straight into is play. Just don't care about anything else. Let's just play first. This not only gives the clinician a clearer view of what a child is able to do naturally, and this is what they do all the time at home, but it also allows everyone to relax. And I'm not just talking about the kiddo, I mean parents as well. Also, when a child plays, you're able to ask them questions about their play, and generally children are pretty excited about it. One thing I like to check in with play, depending on what the child is playing with and how they're playing, is ask them, is this object a boy or girl? Oh, what animal is this? Especially when it's not very clear this animal is an animal. I'm looking at you, blocks. And then I check back later. Let's see if the child is consistent with the cat is a girl, the dog is a boy. Because that's generally how it always is. I'm not being stereotypical, it's just kids like to say the cat is a girl and the dog is a boy. Sometimes they mix it up and I'm thrilled. Are they consistent with what they assigned a toy at first and carried it on? If a child is not consistent, well, is it because the child decided to change it naturally later on, or is it because they forgot? Now, if a child is consistent with whatever they assigned a toy in the middle of play, with a girl being a girl and a boy being a boy, are they consistent with pronouns? And some days we just wake up on the wrong side of the bed and things are not going great. And then this person gives you a marker and a mirror and says, have at it. Just do something that you want to do. Yes, it takes the pressure off. And it's something new, something different, and maybe something the child has always wanted to do, but they haven't been able to do it at home for various reasons. What this does, either you start at anatomy level, you meet the child at their level, you elevate them so they feel like they're part of this learning environment, or you start with play and you let them know, hey, we're starting at your level, or even you start at a confusion level and say, hey, I want to understand, let's start with this. You're starting to bring the pressure down and the motivation up, and you start creating this environment where communication, play, learning is all the same. For the question of the day, what is your favorite kind of learning style? Personally, I'm very visual spatial, meaning I like to visualize space and how things are. I still remember a history lesson at university where the teacher got chairs, positioned them in a certain way in the middle of the room, had all the students sit inside this really weird oval shape, and basically said this was the size of a ship. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a terrific day, and I hope you learned something interesting in this video. If you are interested in speech language pathology content, please consider liking and subscribing, and until next time, bye-bye.